We use our education and experience to try and make sense of the world and our place within it. But we're all victims of confirmation bias, and that effectively means that we're on the lookout for thinking, articles, opinions that are in alignment with those that we believe we developed independently. And part of that is that we find it rather easy and comforting to reject opinions that don't conform to our prevailing views. One of the problems of getting a professional education is that although it brings you knowledge, it also brings with it a lot of status and self-esteem issues. We begin to see ourselves as having a degree of superior understanding in whichever domain we work. And that spills out and over into our interpretation of issues that really have very little to do with the area in which we work and in which we have our experience. And it begins to add to that rigidity and thinking that we have, and that belief that we know best. And we all do it. We can't avoid it. Brings to us this bias we have, and we're always looking for information that supports the view that we already have. So a couple of examples. If you're an engineer, you probably see the world as a never-ending series of problems that you are skilled in helping resolve. So you bring that rational, data-driven experience and you make the world a better place for people. If you're a teacher, you see the world's complexities in a way that you're thinking about, how can I translate that into a way that my students could understand it better? How can I reduce that complexity to some way of helping them advance their own learning? If you're a lawyer, you see the world as having a set of rules, and your job is to interpret those rules on behalf of your clients. So you bring your knowledge of the details of those rules and your ability to reason and persuade, and what you're looking to do is to kind of play an advocate or a referee, depending on what your position within the law is. And if you're a politician, you see your job as helping set those rules, using debate and understanding of the needs of people in the community, and how you, in working with your colleagues on the same side and those in the opposition, can thrash out what is the most sensible way forward in any particular policy area. You know, as a salesperson, you might see the world as full of opportunities, and you bring your unique blend of skills and experience to try and help customers and clients solve their problems, but in a way that you and your organization can make a profit. And it's not unusual for sales professionals to see themselves as very competitive, keen to demonstrate that they can bring forward those skills in such a way that they can beat anybody else who's chasing the same opportunity. Now, as we go through life with these professions that we acquire on the back of whatever education we've undertaken during the years, we all look at the world in a slightly different way. And it's one of the reasons why, maybe it's the reason why, seemingly simple or well-known issues in the public sphere, when we think about politics, when we think about perhaps the coronavirus crisis that we're currently enduring, we kind of look at them in a different way and we process facts in a different way. So we take sides, and once we take sides, we use the people who are the influencers within, well, whichever side we take, and we use that as a shorthand, a quick method of trying to get an understanding of what's happening. And that's where confirmation bias comes in. And when we're faced with alternative facts or an alternative perspective, it creates cognitive dissonance. We have this problem in that we're seeing and hearing arguments that are on the surface very plausible, backed up with data and facts, and yet they don't conform to our prevailing views. And so we have this frustration, that mental frustration that perhaps we barely perceive, but which perhaps manifests in arguments and discomfort. And so we fall out with friends and colleagues over seemingly issues that really have very limited, if any, impact on our lives. We've all been in that place during this last year. So when I think about my own experience, I spent over 30 years working in the field of procurement. Now, most people don't know what that means, but it basically means that you're responsible for securing the best value for money on behalf of whichever organization you're working for. And you do that through finding the right suppliers and negotiating deals with them. So returning to the role of the salesperson, as a salesperson is always trying to persuade the buyer, which is what I used to do. They're trying to persuade them that their particular solution or their product or their service is superior to the others, and that choosing them would be a wise thing to do on the part of the buyer. Now, as a procurement person, you typically spend 5 days a week having conversations with those in sales who are trying to persuade you that you should go with them. So you're constantly being sold to, you're constantly being persuaded. And of course, if you're good at your job, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a counter narrative designed to persuade the supplier that the funds you have available, or the budget, are rather limited, and that the supplier should modify their ambitions about what sort of deal they might be likely to secure. Now, what that does, if you're a professional buyer, it turns you into a professional skeptic. So you see, your world is full of engagement with people who are trying to persuade you to perhaps do something that's not necessarily in your best interest. And so what you do is you try and counter that and create that counter narrative in order to get something that's good for you and your organization. So one of the things about being a professional skeptic is that you really have to work quite hard to not become cynical, to be open, to believing that not everyone is out to get you, not everyone is trying to do you over or to sell you a pup. People out there, most of them are just trying to share their ideas and opinions to try and be helpful, to help friends and colleagues understand the world perhaps a little better.